Hey Sam, hey Zifty. Hello Tammy. Good evening, good evening. What a week it has been.
Vivek,
Yes, Sam.
can you comment on I think there's a third cryptocurrency is now a currency of a small country.
Third cryptocurrency. There are some cryptocurrencies that are trying to become CBDCs, but right now the third cryptocurrency is what? No, I'm not sure. Is this?
No, it's not that one. It's further down. Oh, Tether. Some guy attached to Tether. Someone attached to Tether recently, but yeah, XRP. I think it's XRP.
No, so I think XRP is helping some, I think, Southeast Asian country to build their CBDC. So it's not that they have adopted XRP as their national currency. There is only one country that I know of who have adopted crypto as their official payment. I mean, as a currency. You can actually pay your taxes in crypto. You can buy stuff in crypto. You can pay your taxes in crypto. I mean, so for any, when we say that a particular thing is or any particular asset, whether currency or whatever, is the currency of a country, it means you can actually pay your taxes in that. And there is only one country that I know of which has adopted crypto, which is Bitcoin, as an official currency. So which is no, not Venezuela, it is El Salvador. So El Salvador was the first one who have adopted Bitcoin as an official currency, and the president of El Salvador have been buying Bitcoin during these dips, whatever the recent dips have. If you really go down to Twitter and check on President Bukele, he will President Twitter. So he will be like tweeting anytime Bitcoin goes down. He will just come and tweet, okay, we picked few more. That was the last time he had done. So this is the only country that have adopted Bitcoin as official currency. And then, of course, they've been helped by a lot of these crypto companies like Strike, so that the residents can buy and sell and don't have to wait, for, because right now say, oh, Bitcoin is so slow, you can't do anything on it. Oh no, you can do it. There are stuff that's already happening, at least in El Salvador, where you can actually go and live. If only you, even if you don't have bank account, you can still live while you have just on a Bitcoin. El Salvador have their own Bitcoin wallet, Chivo, and they gave a Bitcoin worth $35 to every resident who had downloaded that particular wallet. So that's the only country. There are many other countries who are working on creating their CBDCs, which is central bank digital currencies, which is nothing but a digital representation of the current system. So there is no improvement in that. Improvement in the sense of a little more libertarian side. But the whole CBDCs, if you really look at it, it's even government gets even more control. Today, at least if I have a dollar bill, no one can, if I spend a dollar bill, no one can reverse that transactions. Now imagine if CBDCs are in play and across the governments, that it means every penny we spend, every coffee that I drink is recorded in government ledger. They have come 100% visibility into what I am doing. So that will be it will be like me having an account at Fed. That's where the money originates. Then it flows to us through the commercial banks. If it is CBDC, I have a direct account at Fed. Any transaction I do, eventually, if the government is corrupt, can be reversed. So it's going to be so if it's like a very big tool that will be available in hands of government. Now, depending on what kind of governments these countries have, it could be a great tool because it could facilitate quicker transactions, or it could be used in a bad sense to suppress a particular group of people, or to track transactions. In some cases, transactions could also be reverted because everything is centralized with the government. So what I heard was XRP is working with one Southeast Asian country and help them in implementing CBDC. Right? So even Fed is also looking at implementing CBDCs. Right? China is way ahead of any other country. They in fact did a couple of pilots. They already have their digital yuan. So that's would have been the news on XRP.
So Vivek, I saw a joke of an article. They said the U.S. is ahead of China in digital currency.
I don't think that is so. So I don't know what they meant was a digital currency. We are nowhere close to China in terms of the digital currencies.
I didn't read the article. I just kind of thought,
that would have been
a joke.
It is a joke. China has already done a couple of pilots. We are still on a paper, and I think which is okay because we have to do the right way and make sure that even the people's privacy is protected, and we have an ability, and our freedoms are not curbed. I'll be scared if every transaction that I do is recorded in federal ledgers without any anonymity, right? So that's what I think. From at the US end, Chairman Powell has told multiple times, we don't want to be the first in CBDC. We want to do it right. And I think we have a paper which was built along with the MIT. And now, if I recall, they have opened it up for public discussion, have invited a lot of these crypto companies to come and talk about it, comment about it. How should US go about implementing CBDCs? But China is far ahead. I think some of the other countries are ahead of us. I heard a news about Turkey moving ahead with their CBDC plans. Some of the European countries are moving ahead. So we have a long way to go in Europe.
China has no privacy.
Yeah, I mean, China can do whatever they want to do anyway. So they'll just push through it. They'll just ram through it, irrespective of what some of the concerns might have been raised.
Remember, they have cameras all over the place.
Exactly. So it worked out well to contain the COVID, but obviously there are other areas in which the same authority has been misutilized. So exactly, yeah, Zifty just said the right thing. Yeah, because we are embodied democracy, and I know. Now imagine if the CBDC is the only way, right? And you run afoul of Chinese government, or let's say your country government, and one day you log into your wallet and whoops, all the money is gone. Right? At least if I have a cash or something else, or at least if we work through the through the commercial banks, there is one more entity that comes into play before, between government and federal and me. But if it's CBDC, there is no middle level company. There is no commercial banks. I mean, commercial banks will figure out how they still become relevant, but we all could have a direct account with the Fed, which means the direct account with, a direct line to the Treasury and government. So we gotta do it right. Otherwise, it could be disaster. But I did hear that even I think the Tron is also working with some of the African countries in helping them to build their CBDCs or build their blockchain infrastructure. And if you recall, a few weeks ago, when we were analyzing the funds flow report, we suddenly saw Tron showing up in that funds flow report. And I was surprised by what suddenly happened to Tron. So after that, I went back. And sometimes these reports, the reason I read these reports and talk about those here is, if we see something that stands out, all of us know Bitcoin, Ethereum, institutional investors will continue, they keep on buying. But if there's something else that we see, something new, it pays to go back and look at what's happening in that project. So after we looked at Tron getting picked up, I think maybe it was 3 or 4 weeks ago, that time I went back and looked at what is Tron doing. And then I realized that they're actually working with some countries in Africa in trying to build the whole blockchain infrastructure for them. How it will pan out, only time will tell, but it means some institutional investors do think that if it runs well, that'll be great for Tron. So with that, let's also look at what does the funds flow report have to say for the last week. Okay. So we had a total inflow of 88 million, which is way less than what we had for some of the previous weeks. But net, it was still inflow. Even though the markets have been really choppy from the crypto side, Bitcoin has been doing much. It's been just sideways. Let's go back to Bitcoin and look at last 7 days. It's been just chopping sideways. 7 days. That's it. Right now it is just tad below where it was, but few days up, few days down, almost the same thing. Have been really choppy. But overall, I think there are still funds were institutional investors. They were still net buyers. Sam says NYC mayor wants pay in crypto. I read about it. He's pro crypto. I think he mentioned that he wants to get a portion of his pay in crypto. I don't know if in this week he's come back and told he was 100%. And I think he's also looking at how the employees of New York City can have access to crypto in their 401ks. So this is quite a stark difference in the flip in what we see in NYC because the New York State have been very heavily regulated in terms of crypto. They have a big license. If you want to offer cryptos to New York residents, you have to have that bit, should have obtained a bit license. And that is, one of a tough, that the conditions to get that is very tough. So many of these crypto companies, and I don't know exactly the names, but maybe check on Celsius BlockFi. They will actually tell you, sorry, we don't offer it to New York residents. Because, there are the laws to protect the residents of New York. Supposedly, they have to protect the residents of New York. Those are very strict if you want to offer crypto services to residents of New York. But New York City mayor, he's pro crypto. There has been a healthy competition going on between NYC and Miami in terms of who could create a better ecosystem for cryptos, trying to attract more crypto-based companies, trying to attract and create more crypto-based jobs, and also to do more and more in terms of cryptos. Right? Miami has their own Miami coin. New York has also working on their New York City coin. So it's a company which is helping these cities to come up with a city-specific coins. So I like that healthy competition. That'll be great. We have that healthy competition. So overall, it was still positive inflow, but looks like in some of the providers, like some of the institutions, they saw some outflow, while some of the others, they saw inflow. But overall, I would say Not too much. 88 million is not big when we're talking about, 2 trillion plus $2.5 trillion overall assets. But nonetheless, it still ended up a positive week. We saw Solana, Tron. Tron is back in news after a few weeks. The recent price appreciation for Tron, a world computer coin, has pushed its total AUM to be above that of Cardano. I don't know what's the reference to this world computer coin. So I saw this today. So I'll have to do a little more research on what is Tron and world computer coin. Does anyone know? Azifty says Tron reminds me of the movie Tron Sci-Fi. But I mean, last time when we saw in the funds flow report that institutions were picking up Tron, that time when I looked at it, it was more to do with some of the projects that they're doing in Africa. But this week, I saw this line, Tron, a world computer coin. So I don't know what, maybe we have to do that more research, but people who are paid more than me are actually collecting Tron now, and that has overall pushed the asset under management on Tron higher than Cardano. Right? The decline in the price of Cardano could also contribute to the reduce reduction in that overall value. But Tron is something new that we've been seeing it for last few weeks. So maybe it'll pay to go back and check what the heck is Tron doing. Why are institutions, investors interested in Tron? The top ones, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, we've been seeing, and Polkadot and Cardano, they have been on this list for many weeks. Tron has started to build up now. All the panic selling was focused on Bitcoin last week. Despite this, on an aggregate basis, Bitcoin saw a total inflow of 51 million. Okay. Ethereum saw minor outflows. It's the first time after the 6 weeks of inflow. Okay, it's minuscule. Statistically, it's irrelevant. So net, I would say it's still a choppy market, not entirely bullish. From an institution perspective, they are not running to the towards the door and selling off all their assets. They'll pick up small and steady. Couple of other things that caught my eye before we jump into the scaling solutions is how this Bored Ape NFTs that has caught this whole crypto stuff by fire, and someone sold the $300,000 worth of a Bored Ape NFT and sold it only for $3,000 just because they misplaced the decimal sign. That's it's a big mistake. Now, if it was in a traditional finance, right, in a current trad file, we have seen in which if someone does a mistake, you can go back and tell, hey, it was an honest mistake, and then you have a course, and sometimes you'll see people will revert and refund that money. Right? We have seen that with, I think, one of our junior Tosh Bank. He sent out almost $6 billion to a hedge fund client, and then client returned it because that was a mistake. We saw Citibank sending out some hundreds, there are a few millions of dollars to some of the companies under as a prepayment of some loan. That was a mistake. Some person on a Citibank, it was a human mistake, send it out. They were not supposed to go out to those lenders, and the lenders assume, oh, it's a prepayment for my loan. They happily took it. And I know then Citibank reached out to each one of them saying it was a mistake. We were not supposed to pay you. Sorry, we were not doing any prepayment. I mean, Citibank's clients were not doing any prepayments. Whatever reason, some of them returned the money. Some of them said, oh no, we'll consider it as a prepayment. We won't going to return you. And then now Citibank is fighting in the court. But unfortunately, in decentralized world, in blockchain, once you're done, it's done. So maxnut.eth, he accidentally, instead of putting the Ethereum price as, let me just go back where it was. He had meant to price the NFT at 75 Ether, but he accidentally typed 0.75 Ether. And before he could even correct it, the bots actually just snapped it. So, and now, there is no way for we don't know behind the bots in any way, hey, it was a price, we picked it up. And it says, I instantly saw error as my fingers clicked the mouse, but a bot sent a transaction with over 8 ETH. So he sent it for 0.75. So 8 ETH of gas fee. So it was instantly sniped before I could click cancel. So there are a lot of intelligent bots sitting out there. They'll make sure that if we can get a deal of 0.75 Ether instead of 75 Ether, they'll ready to pay 8 ETH so that their transaction could go out instantly and not wait before the original person could even cancel it. And before I could cancel, just like that, 250K was gone. So be careful. We have to make sure no, fat finger trades here. Yes, Sam.
I made it, I buy options. So I don't know. I think I might have done $5 too much above the market price. I don't know. I hit enter, and then maybe 2 minutes later, I found out I had a mistake, and no one bought my thing. You think Fidelity delays it or something? I messed up.
I don't know if it is I have seen, I don't know which platform was it. If it is too far away from market price, and I think once I saw warning saying check your price, but $5.
Yeah, that because I tried to do a $3 below, and they wouldn't let me do that.
Yeah, or maybe the bid-ask spread could be way wide. That also is possible, and there may not be any volume at the pricing that you are trying to offer. It is possible because the market price could be worse. Where it was generally the price that you see is the middle of.
No, but what I did was I offered to buy too expensive. And I thought it went through.
Yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, well, luckily no one took it.
Yeah. No, sometimes I try to even buy at a higher price where it was last traded, but depending on the volume or the bid-ask spread width, trade still won't go through. Okay. Other couple of things. Before we jump into our scalability discussion is, that's I saw it today. Again, like I mentioned, this week was crazy week. For those who are in software industry, we're all been dealing with the Log4j issues. So I didn't spend much time on my study for cryptos, but a couple of things that caught my eye in whatever time I could come back and look at some site was, federal regulator said today that credit unions can partner with crypto providers. This is great, and which will allow them to support the buying and selling of cryptocurrencies. It's an interesting one. I have to get into the details of what does that mean. Does that mean the only credit unions can they also offer crypto assets to their own customers? That will be interesting. So right now they say they can partner with third-party digital asset service providers. This includes facilitating member relationship with third parties that allow FSU member to buy, sell, and hold various uninsured digital assets with third-party product outside of FICU. This is great. So remember, it was last year when we talked about. Now, I'm not surprised on this one. And I'm not surprised that the banks have actually started to prepare for this. It was last year or early part of this year. There was the news that we talked about it, which was that NIDIC is partnering with FIS. And NIDIC is a company which has been helping many other companies get into digital assets. And FIS is a company, I always get confused between FIS and Pfizer. Right? So bear me, I may be mixing the FIS and Pfizer name, but it was either of these two. And that's a company which actually have an online banking digital platforms. So that's like a bank out of the box, right? Now, at that point of time, we talked about that this FIS in the US, they have access to almost 300 million accounts run on their platform. And who uses these platforms? If I'm Bank of America, I'm one of the biggest banks, right? I have billions of dollars and my IT budget is billions of dollars. I will build my own systems, right? And today, the banking is all about technology, because they are so much of a competition with the fintech players, that if you don't have and run on great technology, you're kind of left behind. But then we have a lot of these credit union banks, regional banks, smaller banks. They don't have big IT budgets. They can't compete with what PayPal is doing. What do? They partner with these companies like, again, let me go back and check whether it's FIS or Pfizer, NIDIC. Oh, sorry, it was Pfizer. Right. When was that done? It was actually mid of this year. That's when we reviewed. So what happens? So Pfizer provides a platform in which, if I'm a small bank, I can basically use Pfizer platform and quickly have access to all the banking tech. Right? And our discussion point at that time was that, hey, if the regulators become okay with banks to provide crypto services to their customers, this deal will be helpful. Right? So companies and like Pfizer, etc., had started to think through all those like early part of this year. Right? Now, if Pfizer, on Pfizer platform, there are 300 million accounts. I don't know how many banks use that, but there are some platforms like Pfizer, Q2, S1. All these are companies which kind of provide a SaaS banking solution. Right? There's another company, nCino, a new IPO. It's called a BaaS, right? Banking as a service. So all small banks, credit unions, etc., are basically customers of these. So now, if credit unions have to go and offer crypto because if regulators have provided, Pfizer is already working with NIDIC. They started that partnership 6 months ago. They probably already, are maybe ready to offer this to credit union and their member banks. So I'm not entirely surprised, because when we heard about that news, we actually talked about it. But it's a good move in terms of from an adoption perspective. I see a question from Zifty. I wonder, though, if credit unions have sophisticated ID security system to safeguard access and storage. No, they don't. And that's why they won't be doing it. They will just be providing an access path, and that is where the NIDIC comes into picture. That's why the Pfizer has tied up with NIDIC. But NIDIC has got huge relationship with all the digital asset, those who secure the assets, right? So small shop cannot afford IT. So let's go back to the news. They all work with a custody providers. The right term is a custody providers. So what does they say? This includes facilitating member relationships. The digital assets will stay with the third-party custody providers. NIDIC works with tons of these. So all these, let's say, Grayscale the Grayscale Trust, or any of these ETF providers. They all, many of them, not all, because there are many companies like NIDIC. Many of them, they work with the companies like NIDIC who help them in safe digital custody. We looked at the new ETF which was launched. Right? That ETF company, iShares, they are not in the business of storing cryptos. They'll work with a digital custody provider. Fidelity is one of the digital custody provider. There are many others which are specialized only in this. And the companies like NIDIC, they help these institutional investors, they help these funds like Tesla. Right? Tesla is not storing, the Tesla had bought Bitcoins. They are not storing on their own. They are working with some third-party digital asset provider. So what this regulator has saying that credit unions can now allow their members to buy and sell crypto assets, but it will be stored with the third-party providers. So credit unions become a conduit. So imagine if I go to my bank website, I have a brokerage account, I might, and if I have another tab saying buy and sell crypto, you don't have to open any other exchange account. Things like that. So that's the scenario that I'm envisaging. Right? But it took 6 months. But the infrastructure work was already being done. FIS has started working on this 6 months ago. So we'll see what's the final uptake of this one. And then a couple of stuff. This whole NFT, that's making me crazy. Sometimes I feel that I'm getting left behind because despite all the bullishness that I have in the crypto economy, one area where I'm little scared is where this whole NFT space is going. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I am a long-term believer on the usage of NFT and the benefits that a non-fungible asset can provide in terms of a lot of these paper stuff that we chug along, we have can all be NFTized. I don't know if that's the word, but these all celebrities coming up with their NFTs left, right, and center. That makes me little jittery. That some of these mania has hit too much. I see people, releasing their NFTs. They're not even celebrities, but it looks like if you just create an NFT, people will just think, oh, it's a great thing to buy. It's just like any .com business, what a great business in 2000. Right now, that's where, at least from my perspective, I'm looking at the way I see the NFT craze has been happening is any kind of NFT from anyone seems to be catching attention. So be careful. Some NFTs will have real value because they are really rare and provide, at the end of the day, NFT means you are having a digital signature. Right? The corporate digital, you have access, you have the digital signature, ownership of the digital signature. If it's my signature, it has got no value. So if I create an NFT, think twice before you buy that. So don't buy NFTs from anyone that you really don't believe in. So that's one area where I'm little cautious, because when this whole craze will come down, it could also bring down a lot of projects and generally, could cause some downturn in the market, just like because NFT is one big use case for digital assets, blockchain technology. So be careful on this one. Not all NFTs are great. Just like not all paintings sell for thousands of dollars, not all paintings are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. There are some great painters whose paintings are worth tens of millions of dollars. In some cases, hundreds of millions of dollars. Right now, anyone sketching anything creating NFTs, and some people are just snapping it. So this is good for fun, but be careful. If you are in NFT business, be sure what you're buying. Have your own conviction on why buying this really, really makes sense for you. So we saw former First Lady launching her NFT, and then MMA fighters, they are launching their NFTs. I think the list can go on and on and on and on. Many celebrities are coming up with their NFTs, but not every NFT will be successful. So do your own due diligence. It's a .com time bubble, and at least from an NFT perspective, I think that's what's happening. So be careful on that front. These are child's play, not the real purpose of NFTs. It's for infomercials and marketing experimentation. Yeah, but then consider that as an experimentation. Don't consider that that's a way in which I want to invest my, I want to hold it so that it will pay off in my retirement, right? Van Gogh will pay off, Rembrandt will pay off. I can sketch something on a paper that won't pay off. So actually, someone asked me, why don't you do NFT? I'm like, no, I don't have a time. Right now it's a craze, but you need to have folks who believe on you. You need to have that big fan following, that people are crazy to buy something that you have come up with in long term. Right now I see a lot of folks creating NFTs. All right, good warm up. So let's talk about scaling. What kind of scaling solutions are available? Maybe this is again treat it as an open discussion. Let's talk about it. Let's share. I don't have a too big a document, but I have put some bullet points, and I'm hoping we can all actually get more into discussion on what's happening, what you are seeing, and what your thought points are around the scaling. So before we even get into the scaling solutions, first let's understand something called a trilemma, blockchain trilemma. If you ask anyone who has been active in this space, this is a triangle that everyone knows. It's called blockchain trilemma. And the trilemma is, because there are three vertices, that's why trilemma, otherwise they could have called it dilemma, is scalability, decentralization, security. All it means is you cannot have all three. That doesn't mean, let's say in future may not have. There are a lot of projects which are working to solve this puzzle. So if you want to be scalable, you have to sacrifice something, security or a decentralization. Okay? If you want to be decentralized or secure, then you have to sacrifice a scalability. It means you cannot do what Visa is doing. So Visa is scalable. MasterCard networks are scalable. They do 100,000, 40,000 transactions per second. Bitcoin does 7. Just 7. Single digit. But Visa is completely centralized. There's 0 degree of decentralization in this. Bitcoin, on the other hand, is completely decentralized. So you have to pick and choose which corner of this triangle you want to keep fixed and then tweak with others. So from a Bitcoin perspective, they wanted to stay decentralized and secure, so sacrifice scalability, right? So that's a trilemma, and this trilemma is not new to blockchain. It's been there. These kind of trilemmas have been there since 1980s. We used to call a cap theorem. Right? Won't get into the details of this, but idea is this it's an old problem in computer science. Now, while Bitcoin is decentralized and secure, it is only able to transact 7 transactions per second. Some of the other blockchains, right? Not all blockchains are like this. Someone can make a different choice depending on the use case. Some other blockchains like Hyperledger's Fabric are secure, can handle high transactional throughput, but they are centralized because the consensus is among a handful number of nodes. So it is more centralized. If you can bribe all those handful number of nodes, then the transaction can be reversed. And all the issues that occur with the centralized based systems. That's the reason why we move world, or trying to move towards the decentralized, these new companies. So you pick a choice. Neither of them are bad. It's all dependent on what's the use case is. So looking at these three, right? Security, I believe it's a must-have. It's a table stake. I don't want to put my money or build a project on a blockchain which is not secure, which can be attacked by a hacker, by a nation state, can be taken over by someone. So I think that is must-have. It's a table stake. Decentralization, on the other hand, I would say, is a core reason for someone to implement a blockchain-based solution. I sometimes doubt on some of these blockchains who are like, we got 5 nodes, but we are a blockchain. Why do you even have to do a blockchain if you're just 5 nodes? You're like highly centralized. It just could be even a single point of decision-making authority. Just buy Oracle database. Why do you even go towards a blockchain? It's just because it's hap to go behind a blockchain, because you can get a lot of VC funding. Your tokens, people with some folks will snap up your tokens because now you can actually create a token out of it and then sell the tokens. Of course, there could be some use cases where this may be, I still can't wrap my head around that. If you're not sufficiently decentralized, I'm not saying 100%, but if you're not sufficiently decentralized, what's the point of even using this blockchain as a tech? And scalability is the one which depends on use case. So when I'm evaluating any project, I do look at the decentralization, right? And that's a big question for me, is if you are, again, decentralization, also degree of decentralization is right. If you are highly decentralized, 100% decentralized, things like Bitcoin or Ethereum, right? Some may have a lot more nodes, but may not be like thousands, but let's say 500, 600. I would say, okay, sufficiently decentralized, then still okay. But if you are like running your conception with 10 nodes, last week we analyzed a project. I forgot what was that. And they said we actually start with 10 or 15 nodes. Right? I don't know why you even have to go towards the blockchain. Then maybe pick up something else. There are a lot of other technologies that are available, which are way, way faster. If you're not even are decentralized, why you even pick blockchain? Scalability is the one which I think depends on the use cases. That is something, if a blockchain is not scalable, I would still be okay. Because what's your use case? What are you trying to solve? Are you trying to solve a payment problem? Well, then you should be scalable. But if you are a platform for enabling, let's say, mortgage buying or selling, it's okay if you're not able to do 100,000 transactions per second. And you can, we can live with a little less. Those are not the transactions. We don't buy houses every now and then. I go and swipe my cards 5 times a day. House, I'll probably buy one in 15 years, right? And maybe do a little refinance. So depending on the use case, I'll be okay if a project is scalable or not. But the whole idea was that if this whole economy, crypto economy has to become as pervasive as what we know TradFi, traditional finance. And if you have to build the systems like our exchanges, stock exchanges, our banking systems, you have to build that in a decentralized fashion, then those really need to be scalable. I can't have a stock exchange which only processes 7 transactions per second. There's no way it's going to work. So researchers around, on all these crypto projects have been searching for how to scale it and try to not sacrifice the other two too much, that you actually basically lose the point of even having a blockchain, right? So there are some scaling solutions that we'll talk about. So one is, when you're looking at scaling, it could be scaling at the L1 level itself, right? So I think it was last week we talked about L1 blockchain, then you have a L2 blockchains, which sits on top of the core blockchain like Ethereum. So one thing you can do is, hey, let's scale it. Let's scale the Ethereum itself, right? Forget about adding any more other solution. Let's try to scale the L1, do a scaling at the blockchain level itself. So Ethereum, let's say, currently does 15 transactions per second. I don't know what the exact number is, but obviously it is not in hundreds or thousands TPS. But less, right? So a couple of things that have been happening in Ethereum, which they are looking to scale, is move from proof of work to proof of stake. So then the computers don't have to solve that agonizingly difficult math problems, or solve that puzzle and come ahead. The miners won't have to do that, which takes time also to do it. So they're moving from proof of stake. Number two, which is the biggest one from a scaling perspective, is sharding. Sharding is a common term referred on around the database technologies, or how you store the data. Is instead of doing and imagine having instead of one road in which a particular load of a cargo can go in, now I have multiple routes. That's what called shards. You basically, instead of having one channel to pass the data through, you have multiple pipelines in which the data can flow through. So Ethereum is focused on these two, and that's what is called as ETH 2.0, in which Ethereum will switch from proof of work to proof of stake. And then they will also implement, once that whole project is completed, they'll implement sharding. So in which they'll have around 64 shards. So even by doing nothing else, even if you just have proof of stake and sharding, by even ETH 2.0 comes along, it will be 64 times faster theoretically than what it is today. Minimum 64 times faster, because instead of doing transferring, again, I'm simplifying it too much, transferring in a single pipe, now you're transferring it on a 64 lanes, so you can push more through in the same amount of a time. So that's changes that are being done on the basic level 1 on Ethereum blockchain itself. Any other things that caught your eye? I see James there. James, you probably know a lot more about this. You might be more familiar with what are the other scaling solutions on the level 1 on Ethereum. Now let's talk about the level 2 scaling. So I will look at, you have your Ethereum blockchain right here. So either you scale the blockchain itself, but there's a limit, right? Sometimes you reach the limits of physics. How much ever can you scale this pipe, right? So right now, ETH1, we have one pipe. When ETH2 comes along, we'll have 64 shards, right, instead of one. But that still may not be enough to build the whole world financial system on Ethereum. We're talking about 1520 multiply 64. What are we talking about? Visa does like 40,000, 60,000 transactions per second. There comes some other solutions called L2 scaling solutions. And there are different types of solutions. We looked at L1. Then there's L2 means layer 2. Something that derives its base value, not value, but let's say base security from Ethereum, so that all the ethos on which Ethereum is built on, decentralization, security, that's all taken care of by Ethereum blockchain. Right? At any part of a time, maybe Ethereum developers could have decided that, hey, we want to be fast right from get-go, and may not be that decentralized, right? Let's say ETH1. But I think they took a different viewpoint than some of the other blockchains like Solana, because they had a different use case. Now, given the fact that Ethereum has established that they are secure, they are completely decentralized. Now, when it comes to scalability, there can be solutions built on top of Ethereum, right? Which will derive the security and decentralization, which will inherit the security and decentralization of Ethereum blockchain, but will focus on scalability. Now, remember the trilemma is Ethereum cannot, Ethereum itself, the level 1 blockchain cannot solve all. That's okay. We don't have to solve everything at your level, right? So blockchain will provide you the basic, the core security and decentralization, whereas the other solutions on top of it or on side of it, we'll talk about that, will focus on making it scalable. So there are other solutions called rollups, right? So essentially rollups means instead of doing, so right now what happens? If I go swipe for a coffee paid through Ethereum, that goes as one transaction, right? And then each transactions, it goes as an individual transaction in this one. What the rollups do is basically combine a lot of transactions, take a hash of it, and you can create one transaction, right? And then you can trace back the history of that this particular, at this point of a time, this identifier means what other transactions have been in it, right? So basically it rolls up all the multiple transactions into single one, right? So there are some projects that are already working on this one, Optimism and Arbitrum. There are subtle differences on what these are, how are these two different. Won't get into those details, right? But both are rollups, and they are called something called optimistic rollup. And rollup are again of two types. One is optimistic, and the other one is ZK snark. So we'll get into that. Now, there is a concept called ZK. If you stay active on this blockchain, you'll hear this concept called ZK. It means zero knowledge. That means I don't have to, it means I can tell you something, I can tell you that I know a particular secret. I can talk to you about the property of a secret, but I won't have to tell you the secret. Without telling you the secret, I can convince you that I actually have the secret. So for example, so that's called zero knowledge, right? I'm not sharing any knowledge about that particular secret, but I'm sharing, through some other way, I'll tell you that I know about it, right? So this enhances the privacy. You don't really have to know the transactions, but you can figure out everything else that this technology have to do when they're trying to consolidate the transactions. So in a real life, for example, a proof of a zero knowledge, ZK would be, say this is a tunnel. In between the tunnel, there's a door with a keypad lock on it, right? And I'll tell you, I know the key combination to open up this door, right? You probably know it, so I'll tell you, even you know what, I know about it. So first question will be for you to verify, okay, tell me what it is, because you know what's the right combination, but I don't want to tell you. So how do I prove to you that I actually know about this? I'll enter from this, I'll exit from this. So when you see that I have exited from here, that proves that I know the secret, or I know the keypad combination, and I didn't have to tell you about the keypad combination. Right? So this is an example of zero knowledge. So another example of zero knowledge. So today, so if I go to a shop, and if I have to buy alcohol, right, I have to prove myself that I'm above a certain age. In absence of this zero knowledge, the only way for me to prove is actually share my date of birth, which is a PII information. I shouldn't want to share it, but there is no other way. So I have to actually share my secret to prove that I'm 21 years of age. There could be some other way. Zero knowledge. Another one, for example, I hold a deck of cards and I keep one card upside down, and I'll tell you that this card is a red card. How do I prove to you that this card, which is upside down, which I've taken out from the deck of cards, is a red card without showing you that card? I don't want to show you that card, but I just want to give you conclusive proof that it's a red color card without showing you the card. Easiest is just show the card, but that's a secret. I don't want you to tell you what I'm holding. The other way is I open up the rest of the deck of the cards, and I take out all the black cards. I take all the black cards out, and then you count the rest of the remaining cards. Those will be 25. So I've proven that the card which is outside is a red card. Right? So these are like, there could be many real life applications of this zero knowledge proof, that you can still preserve the privacy of the consumer, but still can build something else which will, confirm to authorities what they want to know. If I have to prove my identity, today I have to show my driver license, which it means not only they know my name, they know my date of birth. Who is looking at it knows my date of birth, knows where I live. That's not required for my identity. So this whole ZK, zero knowledge, has been the overall branch of study in which the computer scientists trying to understand how do we get the knowledge that, or the information that we need from a set of transactions without actually knowing about a transaction. So example, I need to know, when you're trying to combine these transactions, you don't really want to know about each of the transactions, but you need to know what's the, and what is the result here at the end. So that's why you'll see a lot of the ZK term being used. I just wanted to give a little background on what that ZK means. Okay. So there are a roll-up side, there are something called optimistic roll-up. Optimistic roll-up means, hey, we signed a contract, you and I hopefully we are doing what we are supposed to do. And once we do all these transactions on layer 2, it means we assume that you've done the right job. Okay. So one thing which I forgot to explain, the concept of layer 2 is, so for example, all the transactions done on layer 2, because The layer 2 and layer 1, they sync up on periodic basis, but I don't have to sync up every transactions over to layer 1. Bunch of transactions happen in layer 2, then later on I can just combine and move, post the result on layer 1. Now, the optimistic rollups are, let's assume that everything is okay. People are honest by default, right? So everything that is being posted, will just let it go through. But there are always bad players. So what do? You have to then have a code system or someone who can say, oh no, you committed a fraud, or someone who's actually verifying, not immediately, but have some time to verify it and say, hey, you committed a fraud. And then it gets into dispute resolution, just like our today's system is. So on the optimistic rollups, they are very fast because you don't do an initial check immediately, but you assume that whoever is posted transactions, those nodes have done the right job. But you keep some time, which is generally right now is 7 days, for anyone to challenge a transaction that has been posted by a miner or by a node. And if that transaction, if we figure out that somebody has challenged it, and if that turns out to be right, the challenge turns out to be right, means the node has done a dishonest job, then basically they lose what if they have logged in as part of a ETH, right? Or they have to put in some ETH to actually become a node who can post transactions. So but it means if I want to withdraw something, if I am let's say doing using a DeFi platform or an exchange which is built on using optimism, and if I want to withdraw it, I'll have to wait until the challenge period is completed. So the downside is the withdrawal means from the system would be delayed. And again, there are other solutions that people can think of. Some other company can take on that risk at some nominal amount. You can hedge, you can hedge your risk by passing it over to someone else, right? Because once the transaction is committed to this blockchain, then it becomes immutable. As long as it is not committed within the layer 2 solution, optimistic Arbitrum, you can have that fraud challenges and slashing, etc. So there are 2 projects which are Optimism Arbitrum, which are optimistic rollups. Means they assume things are doing good. If not, there's a period in which the fraud, if the transaction can be challenged, and if it is found to be incorrect, the node who published it will be punished. The node who found that is wrong will be rewarded, and the transaction could be reversed. So if you want to if you have a need to do some immediate work, it may not be the best one, but there are other solutions that someone else can actually take a risk off your plate and say, if you want to withdraw $100, they'll say, okay, I'll take on the risk that it might be a fraud, but I'll give you $98 right now, immediately. And he can get $100 7 days later. So there is a way to pass on the risk. There are players in the market. James says, ZK has one major downside though. You need to seed the system with some initial secret. So you need to trust them that the initial secret is destroyed.
Yeah, so for this system to work, you can think of it as like initially you need a public key, private key pair.
Mm-hmm.
The public will be used to verify all the proofs. The private key needs to be destroyed, because if somebody somehow has access to it, then they can do whatever they want. So the very first crypto that used this technology, I think is called Zcash.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened when they initially did the deployment, the initial ceremony, they did a very elaborate, you can look that up, it's pretty wild, elaborate system to prove to the world that that they don't have the key anymore. Like they did, like they basically had a bunch of people that didn't know each other, and they pretty much turn the key into pieces, and then they would go from like a CD-ROM to a USB drive and then to a computer, and then the computer would get smashed or something. So they did all of that to prove this is actually very hard, right? How do you prove that you don't have access to that anymore? Because after that is all good, right? After that initial seed, after that it's all good. You can do all your zero knowledge proofs. Everything's just all good, right?
Yeah.
But the initial seed, do you really trust that that they don't have that anymore? Like, does the Zcash team still have that key, or the key is gone? Right? That's the thing. That's the only thing that I'm not. I mean, it's always in the back of my mind. I'm like, yeah, well, what if they still have it, right?
So we are back to trust. Back to trusting.
Yeah, right. So like that's the thing. Like, yeah, this isn't as definitive as like burning tokens, because if you're burning tokens, you're sending it to an address that has like the amount of entropy that I can see that there's no way that there's a private key, that you can create a private key for that. But but how do you know about the initial ZK stuff? And I'm pretty sure the Starkware, and they're gonna have to do that too, right? When they launch, like somebody, like any ZK zero knowledge system, always has that initial state. That's like the Achilles heel of like any ZK system. I wish they could figure out a way to solve that. I mean, that would really, right, make it take off. But just wanted to throw that out there.
Well, good to know. Good to know. I mean, that's an important information around that. You have to trust someone for the initial seed that's the private key has been destroyed. Yeah. But I've seen, Vitalik has been pretty. I mean, if you really look at his a recent one, the end game. We'll get to that once we look at the other ones. So I think this one, 2017, there was a project called Omisego, and now I don't see any traction, and the code developer has moved to create a new one, Boba network. So now you might see some more things around, or hear some more stuff around Boba network. Is it because the same developer is now building another roll-up or scaling solution for Ethereum on Boba network? So the other ones are ZK snark rollups, which are like Loopring, Starknet. Now these, you don't assume that people are honest. Using this whole ZK proof, you actually prove that what you have is right, because you already, cryptographically you prove that it's right. But the problem in that is the complex the type of transactions, building the cryptographic proof become more and more complex. So as of now, I think if it's just a plain payment transaction like buying and selling of tokens, it's okay. The moment you get into the smart contract like stuff, I think as of last year, the community didn't even know that it's even feasible, but looks like some progress have been made over past year to even implement this for more complex transactions, like what all you can do in a DeFi platforms, etc. So project like Loopring, Starknet or Starkware, I heard both the names. At least I've seen both the names, but it is Starkware or Starknet, which are building solutions on using zero knowledge proofs. In this case, we have already proven. So there is no 7-day withdrawal. There is no waiting period. There is no challenge period in this one. But the use cases that you can do could be limited. But now exchanges like DYDX is being built on it. So it is possible to scale to hundreds of thousands of transactions per second. So there are a lot more these L2 scaling solutions which are available. Today we just briefly touched upon Arbitrum. DYDX is the Starkware. Boba network, loop ring, optimism. There are other ones, ZK swap, and all that. So that's on a layer 2. The other one is, okay, I'm not going to derive, from this one, but I can build something on the side. It means you push over these transactions onto my blockchain, and I will have some other way, maybe I'll have a proof of stake, which is what, some of the other L2 sidechain scaling solutions have. And we'll do all the transactions on this blockchain because this is faster. And then we'll post the net result in this. If your Ethereum is your record of ledger, it's like opening a tab in a bar. I don't have to post every transaction to Visa. I open a tab. Now any additions, refunds we will do in the tab. And once I close the tab, you post the transaction back to Visa saying, okay, this is the net result. So there are some side chains which are built in. One of them, the most famous, is the biggest one for the Ethereum is Polygon/Matic. And that is why now there are days on which Polygon processes the total value of a transaction processed on Polygon is higher than what is processed in Ethereum, because those are pretty quick. Those are pretty cheap. You don't have to pay that big, huge ETH gas. But the downside is, now your question is, hey, if they become so scalable, what have they sacrificed? They are moved on to proof of stake, and the number of validators that they have is not as big as what, some of the other proof of stake networks were. But so if you move your ETH from your Ethereum mainnet over to Polygon, then you can transact everything on Polygon. Obviously, when you're moving from ETH to your Polygon network, you have to pay the gas fee once. Then you can, let's say, I do this for Aave, right? So there are a lot of these DeFi platforms that have now started supporting Polygon network, and you transact everything on Polygon, and which periodically will post the results back onto Ethereum. Then there are something called state channels, which I think between two people. So if I'm having Ethereum, you hold Ethereum, we want to transact, we open up a separate channel and we transact among ourselves, right? And then we post the net result back to Ethereum. If you want to read more around where Vitalik Buterin is looking for, what's his thought is, he's all about ZK rollups. So recently published this blog around of all these different scaling solutions that we have. Like we got a side chains, we got a optimistic rollups, we got a ZK rollups. So eventually, I think Vitalik, he is more focused around getting the ZK rollups. He thinks that's where Ethereum should move, and that's what will help Ethereum to scale. Again, if you're interested, just Google for Vitalik Buterin endgame. That's this blog, came out very recently. So that's around what's happening on the Ethereum side. But there are a couple of stuff that happened on the Bitcoin also. Again, looking at the scaling that you can do on level 1, there was a SegWit upgrade that happened in 2017. Pretty contentious it was, but eventually it got it done, in which we reduced the basically that was to take out the witness signatures from the code transaction part, so that we can stuff in more transaction related data into the block. It means more transaction code can get into one block get processed in 10 minutes, means more transaction can get processed. Other one which had recently happened is the Taproot upgrade. We talked about the Taproot upgrade. One of the abilities in the Taproot upgrade is a Schnorr signature, which means you don't have to really If there is a multi-sig transactions, you don't have to have 5 signatures. Eventually, it can be just 1 signature, right? So that means less amount of metadata, more of data about the transactions can get into block. But again, that still may not be enough. So other solutions are coming up. The one which is probably the most used, and this is where the whole El Salvador, we talked about that the resident of the wallet that those residents have, that wallet uses Lightning Network. This is more like a state channel that we talked about earlier. Is Lightning Network means it's actually sits on top of blockchain. So if I'm a business A, you are business B. We are transacting among each other, right? Say we do 20 transactions, 50 transactions in a day. In level 1, all those 50 transactions need to be recorded on Bitcoin blockchain. When it comes to the blockchain, the rare commodity, the most expensive commodity is a block space. And you and I, we transact 50 times a day. We're just filling up that block space with that 50 transactions. So what Lightning Network is that instead of us posting each transactions, like something that I briefly talked about a state channel, is we open a channel among ourselves. Right? I bring in 10 Bitcoin, you bring in 10 Bitcoin. When we open a channel, we'll post one transaction in Bitcoin blockchain saying channel opened. Yeah. Now we can do all the 50 transactions among ourselves. And then send a final, when we want to close the channel, we send it to Bitcoin, Bitcoin blockchain saying, after all the transactions, the net balance is now, I have $2, you have $18. And then that balance gets updated in the Bitcoin blockchain, becomes immutable. So using this, now we can achieve, that sub-second transactions performance. Now there are a lot of development happening around this. And the bigger question is, hey, if I want to send it to, say, D, right? I'm a businessman. I don't know every person. Say, let's take an example of what happens in El Salvador, right? If I go for a haircut, I have to give my barber some money. I don't want to, open a channel for my barber. It's a one time I have to do it. Why do we open a channel again? So in that case, the way it works is, if I want to transfer it from A to D, they'll figure out how is A connected to D. It goes to A to B, maybe B is connected to D. So they'll try to figure out the various chains and the paths on how, the more and more adoption happens, there are more and more paths that are available. And the very recent development on the Lightning Network was around this whole multi-path was, just imagine, it would be possible for us, say, to pay, it could become a streaming money. It could be as fast as us paying to Netflix for the amount of a time that I'm watching the movie. Today, I have to pay a monthly subscription, right? Whether I watch it or whether I don't watch it. What if we could build a solution in which as per second, the movie is being streamed, every second, the amount moves over to the Netflix account from my account. And that can be made possible on Lightning Network. So today, the citizens of El Salvador, if they are actually using Bitcoin for their any daily transactions, all those transactions are happening on through the Lightning Network. And slowly, as the adoption grows, this is where the Bitcoin actually could have another use cases than just store of value. It could actually have a payment use case through the Lightning Network. So that's again on to a lot of development happening. The work has been happening on Lightning Network since I think 2016. But now with the use case of El Salvador and a lot of, let me just see how much Lightning Network total value locked. Lightning Network value locked. So when it's a total value means in terms of how many Bitcoins. So for example, if I open a chain with the channel, I'll commit some Bitcoin, the other person commits some Bitcoin. So let's see what is. So some bottom time it reached overall for 200 million. Again, very less, but this is if Bitcoin really has to take up. This is what right now will be a future for Bitcoin perspective. The other one is liquid network, but this is very specific. This is kind of a side chain that we looked at Polygon or Matic, in which you move your assets from Ethereum over to the Polygon using the Polygon bridge. And similarly, there's a liquid network, which is promoted by the Blockstream. But that's meant for traders. So it's got a pretty limited use case for now. I mean, it's focused only on traders, but for general purpose, right now it's the Lightning Network. And we still have to see how more developments happen on the Lightning Network side. So those are a few scaling solutions that at least I came across. There could be many other blockchains who could be implementing some other variations or trying to scale some other way. I think we looked at Cadena. They're trying to scale it to a multi-web blockchain. Rather than having one linear blockchain, you got multiple blockchains running together. Right? You have to see how it will really perform under stress. But it is a solution. But around Bitcoin and the Ethereum, these are the few solutions around the whole how to scale these blockchains. So keep an eye on what's happening on the Lightning Network, because that also changes the use case for Bitcoin. Anything that has to do with faster transactions are currently built upon Lightning Network. All right, so with that's we reached the end of today's session, talking about scaling solutions. There's a way more details behind all these, which I can't even cover in a full day sessions. But I hope it gave you some pointers to what even search for, what to even Google for if you are interested in knowing about the projects. How does these blockchains will scale. All right, I see some chatter around. Did you get the vaccine? I'm arguing. Okay. So interesting concept. So James, which you brought about is usage of one-time use of the private key. So we'll have to dig more around this. Try to figure out.
This ZK is one of the toughest. Like the math behind it is beyond like crazy. So like I think when Zcash first came out, they did a 5-part series on zero knowledge proofs.
Mm-hmm.
I think after the second video, I was done basically.
Okay. So that's what I was trying to find any information on this, also zero knowledge, and the reason it was so complex. That's what I said that earlier. We didn't even think that we could do, scale on ZK using ZK, because doing it for a plain transfer transaction, still okay. The moment you get into a little more complicated, is the whole mathematically becomes very complicated. But looks like in the last like say 18 months or so, there have been some enhancements happen on the cryptography and the computer science side, which says that now probably it is feasible to do all those things.
Yeah, with ZK, there is one key thing that you have to probably understand first. It's called homomorphic encryption. I don't know if you guys are really that into cryptography, but if you're really into that, homomorphic encryption is basically you can operate on encrypted data. Get this. You can do mathematical operations on encrypted data without decrypting the data first.
Mm.
That's like, to me, that's just what? So basically, like, let's say you can add two numbers and
Right.
get the like two encrypted numbers, and the result is the encrypted version of the result.
So,
Right? That's pretty wild. So
so you don't know what those two numbers were, but you can just find out what
you can, and you can, well, the thing is, with all these algorithms, I think most of these algorithms are probabilistic, which means there is there's this minute probability of the proof failing, but it's so astronomically small, especially if you do enough iterations. Like I think Zcash initially set the iteration number to be 200. So after 200 iterations, like the probability of a false proof is like it's like the probability of the universe exploding or something. Right? Like it's not even, but it is probabilistic. Like you have to, like all of these fancy, like elliptic curve, like all the fancy stuff, right?
Now I recall while I was preparing for it, I read somewhere that you run these multiple times, and I think there was an article was saying if it is like you flip it 50 times, and if you get the heads 50 times, yes, there is a probability. Or you flip a coin 100 times and you get all 100 times, get the head. There is a probability, but it is like.
But that's fine. Probabilistic. I mean, the universe is probabilistic. It's not inherently not a problem, right? Like but it's very hard for people to wrap. Like if you want to wrap your head around that, it's very difficult, right? Because we like certainty. Right, like it's like that's normal, right? Like we don't normally think in terms of,
want my stock to go high because I think it's going to go high. I'll never talk about that.
Right.
I think there is a 60% probability that the stock will go high. No, the stock will go high.
Well, maybe if you're a trader, maybe you're all about probability. But most people they're more about certainty, right? But if you want to do this advanced encryption stuff, or even like quantum mechanics or something, or you have to accept the fact that everything's probabilistic, and that is very difficult for a lot of people to kind of understand.
But interesting stuff happening around the whole scaling. So that's why someone asked me, are we too late on the crypto? And my thought process, based on what I'm seeing, the improvements around the whole scale, I'm like, no, I don't think we haven't seen anything yet. If this really has to take off, all this work which is happening, then it's only, we're trying to build a new financial system for the world. It's many more years to go. It's not too late. We haven't missed anything in crypto yet, and it's heartening to see some of these solutions coming up. That also makes me think when I see some of the other blockchain projects, which is like, hey, we are too fast, we way faster than Ethereum, and then I understand, okay, what have you done? What have you sacrificed?
Yeah, I'm looking really deep into Arbitrum nowadays because that's probably gonna be our layer 2. So
they had some delay in launching, right?
Yeah, they launched. Yeah, they've been running for a while. Yeah,
before. But they got delayed for whatever reason.
Yeah, they've been running for a while. I've been using Arbitrum actually, but it's quite limited at the moment, like what you can do. But so we're looking at Arbitrum and also Starkware, which is ZK.
Starkware.
Right? So so I think these are going to be the primary two scaling solutions that we're going to be looking at.
Starkware is building, if I recall correctly, the Starkware is focused on building a specific use case specific scaling solutions, right?
So they do, so they do want to also. So we're working with them, right? So we want them to take a look at our contracts and see what it would take for us to get there. But for Arbitrum is definitely more general purpose.
Yeah,
So
I mean, Arbitrum is
we
more
can
general.
just build it right for Arbitrum and yeah, and that's yeah. All the other side chains. I don't know. Like Polygon just recently said they're gonna do EIP 1559. I was like, yeah, like whatever.
Polygon is anyway moving.
Whatever, dude.
They are also moving towards Zk, right? They recently acquired what Mir networks or Mir protocol.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
$1 million because
yeah.
they know the writing is on the wall because it looks like folks are moving towards Zk, so they invested for
yeah. Also, with Ethereum, there's some pretty interesting stuff coming up. There's the EIP 4444. That is actually quite interesting, right? I don't know what to make of that. So this particular EIP is called pruning, basically data pruning, historical data pruning. Exactly, yeah. So this gets rid of most of the historical data from nodes, essentially. So basically, you're going to be relying on essentially archive nodes, I guess. So it's going in the direction of Solana in a way, but Solana is crazy, right? Solana is like you barely keep any state around. But like in this case, there's still a good amount of data, but you don't have the whole history anymore. Like right now, I run an ETH full node, right? I don't even need, I can just talk to my node, right? Whatever I need, I can run contracts, I can call, I can do anything. Yeah. But yeah, with this EIP, it's going to be interesting. Like
I past 1 year.
Yeah, so I hope we don't end up like becoming more concentrated, right? Like Infura is already, they're pretty powerful already. Like they provide all the infrastructure for ETH, and if this gets implemented, I mean, they're going to be more powerful. But on the flip side, we are seeing some decentralized archive or data indexing services, right? Like the Graph, for example, even though I hate it. It's like so shitty. If you have to use it, it's like, it's like goes down every single day. But if they have some work to do. But I feel like if they can pull it off and have like an actual decentralized network of indexers similar to Chainlink, where they have like a decentralized network of oracles, right? Nodes. Then it's actually then you can get rid of the historical data, right? Then you don't need the data anymore, because if whenever you need data, you can just ask this decentralized indexer network for the historical data, right? And you know that data is decent, or at least is good if the network is actually decentralized.
And I think for Solana is again, right? They store all their data. They never destroy the data.
For Solana, I think if you're a validator, you don't actually need to keep all of that data. You keep some proof of history or something.
Okay.
And then you only need like a few days worth of active data. Okay. Yeah, so it's not that, but even that's a lot of data, because Solana is very fast. So I can't imagine keeping the whole history of Solana when you can do that many transactions a second. It's just like the storage requirement is going to be enormous, and they haven't really figured out how to do that yet, like how to deal with that problem. Because if they plan on being around for a few years, that storage is going to be huge.
So they are using they're storing all that in
Arweave.
Arweave, right? Arweave.
Yeah. Now the thing is with Arweave, I don't know how decentralized is that.
I've not studied much around Arweave, but again, I think that not just Solana. Recently, I heard about some other blockchain project they will also be using RWeb to store their data. So maybe it's becoming more and more popular.
Interesting. Yeah. I know the graph isn't doing that. The graph is actually the underneath is just nothing more than a Postgres database. So you can run a graph node, and then when you spin up your graph setup, it's essentially just a like a container, like a stateless container that has the graph node and then IPFS. IPFS node, and then a Postgres database. That's it, right? So then what you do is you actively, so the graph node process, or the container actively listens for any Ethereum events. So mostly tied to events, right? So when these smart contracts log events, when they emit events, the graph basically has handlers that can go and index the data into that Postgres. Yeah. And then the RPFS is used for schema registration. So if you like the data, how you want to process the data, what are the entities, what the database schema look like, that stuff is uploaded to IPFS. Yeah, so that's basically what it is. But I do think it's useful. So if you think the graph is I mean, with the historical data pruning, I would imagine the graph would definitely become a thing.
So I haven't spent time on graph, but whatever, little bit cursory look. My thought process on the graph was that it is a decentralized version of Glassnode. Yeah.
That's the vision.
That's the vision. Okay.
So for now, most people are using the hosted.
Okay.
So they have two. You have two options when it comes to using the graph. You can use the decentralized version, which means you run a node and do all that stuff, or you can use one of their hosted services. And the hosted version is definitely not decentralized. It goes down all the time. It becomes delayed heavily. Like we're talking like 100 blocks behind, which you really don't want, right? If you're actually running some critical liquidation or something, you really don't want to be 100 blocks behind. But that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, I have to deal with this stuff like on a more like a kind of more. I'm more hands-on, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, because you guys talk more like big picture, right? Like how the industry is. I like that stuff too, which is why I like to join these meetups, because I do also want to pay attention to. I don't have time, honestly, to really sometimes to go through that.
And we love you here because you bring in a little more. Hey, what's happening at the ground level?
Yeah, I'm all hands on. I mean, I have to make the stuff work.
Cool. No, great to have.
Yeah.
So a quick question to others. What should we give an agenda for our next week session? Any suggestions? Last time, I think the scaling solution, someone asked, saying, let's talk about some scaling solutions. We thought, okay, we would. Any topic? Any project?
Let me talk about DeFi options. This is
options or DeFi or the various choices?
So basically, right now there is a kind of a, well, it's not that new, but it came out in the second half of 2021. It's I think Ribbon Finance is one of the bigger ones, but StakeDAO and a lot of these other protocols have followed. So this could potentially be one of the next things in DeFi, because the thing is, these options vaults, right? So basically what it is if people kind of pull money into a vault. So you deposit tokens into a smart contract, a vault, right? and then the contract automatically on a weekly basis can it executes option strategies, right? So for now, these it's doing some pretty rudimentary stuff, like just covered calls and cash secure puts, like nothing fancy, right? You're not seeing like some crazy stuff.
Right.
And so for now, only Ethan wrapped Bitcoin just because of liquidity, right? Like you're not getting options on some of these more exotic, like Shiba Inu. You're not getting options, right? So like, but the thing is, what's intriguing is the fact that this yield that these vaults are generating, this yield is organic compared to a lot of these farming. Yield farming, right? Because yield farming, the yield is more or less synthetic because you're just minting tokens and then inflation and then if the whole industry crashes, then all the tokens go downhill, and then the yield is going to go down across the board, right? But with these options vaults, your yield is tied to the implied volatility of, right? Which with crypto is always higher, almost always higher than traditional finance. And more or less the yield is what a lot of these institutional players really want to come in and really get that yield, right? And on top of that, with DeFi, when these tokens are sitting in these vaults, while the strategy is being active, these tokens can actually earn other forms of income. Like, for example, the USDC that's in there securing the cash secure puts, that USDC can be like Yearn USDC, or it can be Compound USDC, right? So it can be earning interest while collateralizing these options. So it's interesting, right? It's kind of a interesting topic.
All right, so I'll take a note of ribbon finance. I mean, options and crypto, those are both the topics that I love.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know much about options. I would love to learn more.
I'm heavily into options.
I don't, but I do, because I like DeFi, so I have looked at their contracts and kind of look at how they. I primarily want to know how they're selling these options and where the liquidity is coming from, and I mean, that would be interesting to talk about if you have like some rich background in options.
I mean, I've been trading options. I've been in options for many years, and but not on the crypto side. I mean, on the stock side, nothing is outside of my purview from a strategy or what type of options I do.
Sure, yeah.
That'll be so. Thanks for referring this ribbon. Maybe we'll look at a ribbon finance for our next week discussion. Cool,
awesome.
All right, we spoke almost for 2 hours. The time just flies. Thank you everyone for joining in today and helping us go through this, because I commit something here, so I have to force myself to go and read it. Otherwise I would have just slagged and wouldn't have done much. So thank you for keeping me honest. We'll talk again next week, and our focus will be on ribbon finance for the next week. Good night, everyone.
All right, see you guys.
Bye. See you next week.